Starfield has been out roughly for 3 days now. And you know what that means? That means that the coping can start. And the coping is huge.
Starfield is finally here. Late yesterday, the game launched for the world, or at least
True.
anyone who is willing to cough up $30 for early access. And to go along with this, hundreds of reviews were posted for the game. And as I'm sure you could imagine, there have been a ton of reactions from fans on all of this.
Yep.
Some of these reviews have come under heavy scrutiny, and we'll get into
IGN a 7, heavy scrutiny. Bruh, IGN is the only platform that rated Starfield fairly. Starfield is a 6 out of 10, pretty much, and 7 at maximum. It's like a verse Skyrim with no open world to speak of, and, you know, a bunch of systems that actually are not really that interesting and get really repetitive. So yeah, a 7 I think is honestly fair. And by the way, let's not forget about the fact that Starfield review copies were not given to a single review agency, publisher, or news site that was not on Bethesda's list of they're gonna give us an 8 or above. Okay? That's how the game goes.
that, but even among some of Starfield's own diehard fans, things have started to become fairly divisive,
Obviously.
with a notable subset of fans being disappointed in certain features of the game. So in this video,
Well, yeah, a lot of features are just unpolished, not finished. No, they seem unfinished. The gunplay is lackluster in a lot of cases, you know. There's a lot of things. And by the way, obviously the Bethesda fanboys are going to absolutely, you know, be tearing their hair out. Because the unironic Bethesda fanboy view of Starfield is, and I wish I was joking because I have like multiple tens of comments saying this. Just wait until Starfield launches, and it's gonna be the best game that has ever been. It's gonna push gaming into the next level. Bethesda fanboys unironically considered that Starfield is gonna be the saving grace of gaming, the best game that has ever come out. Unironically.
we're going to talk about all of that. And one of the craziest stats for Starfield right now is the player count. At the time of recording this, the peak player count on Steam hit 234,000 players. And this was hit last night, right around the release of the game. And you might be sitting here wondering, well, why is that even an impressive number? It doesn't even come close to many of the major Steam milestones that have been hit by other games out there. And honestly, this number blew me away, and there's a couple of reasons as to why this is so crazy. First off, the easiest and cheapest way to play Starfield right now is Game Pass. $10 a month and then $30 for early access and you're in. So it seems very likely.
Now, I'm pretty sure some people will use Game Pass, obviously. It's the cheaper alternative, right? Even though Game Pass actually swindles you because, you know, if Game Pass actually was good for you, the player, the consumer, and lost money to Xbox, do you think Game Pass would exist? Obviously not. So, you're actually getting swindled with Game Pass. It actually makes more money than it loses. But it's true. There's gonna be new people coming in when it's playable Game Pass and whatnot, but this is cope.
That a lot of people are going to be playing Starfield on Game Pass. Even despite that, it's still hitting 42nd on the Steam all-time high player count chart is wild. But even further, the only people playing Starfield right now were people willing to spend $100 on the game, or even more in the case of
which means that's literally pretty much everyone who will ever play Starfield.
Constellation Edition owners. These aren't your typical players. We're still in that $30 early access window, and most important of all, this all-time high is from 8 p.m. on a Thursday. Most of the world was asleep when this all-time high player...
I knew this was gonna be brought up, so I went to SteamDB info, app 1716748, chart, which is the Starfield chart, by the way. So, this is 3 days of the Starfield being out, and the peak player count has been, in 24 hours, 236,000 players. So, literally, the fact that it was released on Friday has not actually meant anything, because its peak player base was 24 hours ago, and it was on Saturday. Which means... well, I guess it's slightly bigger, but not really a big deal. So, there you go. Companies do pre-orders because pre-orders work. Okay? Obviously, everyone who wants to play Starfield pre-ordered it. There are some people who haven't obviously done it, but those people are like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 extra % of that number, so you know, it is what it is. Most people are already playing it. Let's not kid ourselves. Pre-orders work.
Count came out, and many of those people also had work the next day. So for Starfield to hit such an insanely high number, even in early access, with Game Pass as a cheaper alternative and on a random Thursday night is bonkers.
I am hearing so much excuses by the way here. And again, it's 2 days later, and the all-time high is still pretty much from that Friday.
This record is absolutely going to get smashed tonight and will likely be broken again tomorrow as Saturday rolls in and everyone has off from work.
Well, that didn't work like that. Also, where the hell are you actually getting this ludicrous idea that most people are working at Saturday? Most people don't work at Saturday and Sunday. It's the minority of people who work Saturdays or Sundays. Like, stop making excuses. It's such a stupid excuse. Oh, most people work Saturday. I understand that America is a hellhole dystopia currently. But, you know, even that banana republic has, has a situation where most people still don't work Sunday, dude. So, you know, relax.
And likely again next weekend as regular access players also roll in. And just the very fact that on launch day, Starfield is the 42nd most played game in Steam history just feels kind of magical. 42 is a famous number for being the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything in Hitchhiker's Guide.
Leave it to Starfield fanboys and Bethesda fanboys to cope this hard. They're gonna now fucking find meaning in random numbers. The next thing he's gonna fucking read out his horoscope because you know that also has a key parts of Skyrim and Starfield involved. This is insanity.
To the galaxy, and as you start to play Starfield story, you'll reason why this is incredibly fitting of a milestone for this game. So right now, Starfield's a hit, and honestly, it's doing pretty freaking great on the review front also. Right now in OpenCritic, Starfield is sitting at a rating of 88 out of 100, which for me is like the perfect score for this game. Not in the sense that it's the best score it could possibly get, but that's exactly what I think it deserves. I didn't score Starfield in my review, but an 8.8 has been the number I've been throwing around. And the fact that it's hitting that high of a score with 100 reviews so far means the score isn't moving much. There were a couple of outspoken media outlets to...
Well, again, it's pretty simple. You scored Starfield high, or Bethesda just doesn't give you the next review copy. This is why... By the way, this is the only time when gamers are for some reason taking critic reviews seriously. You know, this is the only time when gamers are like, let's take the critic reviews seriously. Oh, yeah. Other than that, you never take critic reviews seriously, but for Starfield, oh, that matters.
Not get review codes, so as those reviews get posted, things may move slightly, but 100 reviews is going to make the score pretty locked in right now. Although, some of the Starfield reviews have definitely started to see some pushback from fans. Most notably, the IGN review from Dan Stapleton that gave Starfield a 7. This review is coming under fire the most, likely because of who the author is and how he rated other games, but also it's IGN, really the biggest name in games media right now, although there were other major outlets to give Starfield a score in the 7s as well, even outside of IGN. And as you could probably imagine, there have been a ton of fans frustrated with this score. But even beyond that, there's even been other media members questioning how they landed here, and I definitely have my own thoughts and feelings on this one. And to me, there are really two major things going on here. On one hand, the same reviewer from IGN gave
I would not give it a higher than a 6.5.
Fallout 4 a 9.5. So Starfield being a 7, but Fallout 4 a 9.5 seems wild to a ton of fans, and honestly, I understand where they're coming from with that one. Starfield has issues, but I think most would agree it's on par, even slightly better than Fallout 4, and definitely shouldn't be ranked dramatically lower. This, along with a variety of...
I mean, I didn't rank Fallout. I like the game, but I didn't rank it that high. Doesn't make sense, but again, this is why you don't care about what the critics have to say, because they're a bunch of clueless hacks all the time, okay? But, you know, obviously people are going to be pissed about this. Starfield is one step forward, two steps back. The storyline is locked in place, and there's nothing you can honestly almost do about it. You know, so many essential NPCs that you can literally never kill or touch. There is only one way a quest can pretty much always end. There's no variety in that. And, you know, your speaking options are literally like, ah, yes, you can finish a side quest without violence if you choose. Or with violence if you still choose. Yeah, that's not exactly groundbreaking. I mean, it's a step up from Fallout 4's dialogue tree for sure. But honestly, Starfield is a step down from everything else Fallout 4 actually brought to the table. That's just reality.
Of other scores from this IGN reviewer have constituted a huge portion of the pushback, and even just some outright claims of a bias from IGN against Xbox overall, or at least IGN US.
It's probably
some
true.
of the regional IGN counterparts have actually scored Starfield incredibly high, which is also being brought up quite often in all of this.
10,
and in
Jesus.
response, the review author himself has even gone as far as to point out that he's reviewed other Xbox games higher than their typical averages, as a way of demonstrating that it isn't just an Xbox bias. And honestly, on this front, when it comes to this IGN 7, I kind of get the pushback. I was very ready to call this nonsense, and you'll see why in a moment, but the Fallout 4 comparison is genuinely valid and kind of perplexing to me. On one hand, this is just a counter to a previously inflated score with now a more accurate score. I could get behind that, but if this reviewer genuinely believes
All of that sounds stupid.
Fallout 4 exists as a 9.5 right now and Starfield is a 7, I would be a little bit confused, having a lot of hours in both of those games. But in fairness to IGN, there could be a very legit reason for this, and that is in early 2020, they actually changed how they score video games. They stopped using decimal points, aka stopped using a 100-point scale, and instead switched to a 10-point scale, only using round numbers, as well as they just laid out
He's stuck in the ceiling again.
numbers, as well as they just
Yep. As always, the jetpack guys are stuck in the ceiling. You see, the bad part about people liking this Starfield and saying, Bethesda, you did a good job, Todd Howard, you're such a genius, is the fact that you're literally lowering the bar for everyone and every game ever. Because people are gonna see this still, well, not Fallout 76 level of buggy mess, but this buggy mess with, you know, no exploration, no this, no that, no this, and they're gonna say, wow! And people like this garbage? Like, what's the point of even trying to make a game? And the point is also that Bethesda, as a game studio, has delivered Morrowind like 50 times now, and that's all they have done. Literally, Starfield innovates on nothing that was in Morrowind, okay? It pretty much is the exact same thing.
Laid out much clearer criteria of what each score from them actually means. So in IGN's own words, a 7 is a good game. Playing a good game is time well spent. Could it be better? Absolutely. Maybe it lacks ambition, it's too repetitive, has a few technical bumps in the road, or is too repetitive. But we came away from it happy nonetheless. We think you will too. Which, although that would definitely be one of the more critical reviews of Starfield, under this rubric, I could totally see how they get there with Starfield. And if this really is just a case of them using more accurate review standards in 2023 compared to 2015 with Fallout 4, I could respect that. I mean, it's unfortunate. There's obviously going to be a growing curve, and they should probably come out and say that if it is the truth. But overall, an interesting scenario for IGN. I mean, if you actually listen to the review, I agree with most of their major criticisms. They align pretty closely with most other reviews' major criticisms. But IGN definitely went lower on the score.
Bro, I have only seen a single review that actually even mentions the skill tree. What are you talking about? Everyone who is covering this game as a review doesn't even talk about all of it. No one goes in depth about the talking choices, the ship customization, that it's literally just, you know, pretty much a skin and nothing else. There's so little that these current reviews are actually talking about. We literally need to currently wait, I don't know, for some kind of Angry Joe to make a review on this. Because everything else you currently see here is like fucking garbage. No one talks about anything. You don't talk about the gameplay, you don't talk about the things. It's pathetic.
Or compared to other outlets. And if anything, the bigger issue I have with all of this is the absolute nonsense that are video game review scores. Numerous outlets gave Starfield a 10 out of 10, which is kind of baffling to me. It's not like these are just small one-off websites, but full-scale operations are giving this game a perfect score. Starfield is a really good game. It's definitely one of the best Bethesda Game Studios games.
Really good game? Tell that to the companions that still only can serve as pack mules or, you know, stand in front of doors.
Ever come out, but still does have a plethora of problems. Like, if anything, I could see how you get to a score of 7 with Starfield. Like,
yeah, look at this absolutely majestic, magical gameplay. You know what he will encounter while running to this thing? Nothing. Nothing. Literally not a single thing of value, not a single interesting thing. That's it. That's it. He's gonna go there, and that's gonna be it. Okay?
Like, I wouldn't rate it that low, but I could see how you get there. But a perfect 10 out of 10 is just a bit perplexing. Like, did we play the same game? None of the various problems being pointed out by various media members or reviewers justify dropping your score by even 0.1 points? And I think a real core of this issue is video game review scores are just generally going to be inflated. Unfortunately, the way things work right now are 7s are considered to be not that good, and in the case of IGN especially, 7s are really not that good of a review score, while 10s have become too easy to get. A 10 is no longer a sign of perfection.
By the way, this is also a stupid thing that's happening in the game. You can be like level 5 and you can for some reason encounter a full group of level 16s. Which means you're probably gonna die. Because levels just give more stats to opponents, so yeah.
But instead,
or sometimes you encounter, you know, it's the classic Fallout style of thing. You just encounter like a level 1 while you're level 3 trillion.
Just a sign of a pretty good game that released.
I mean, literally not a single issue that you could name with Fallout or Skyrim has been fixed in this game.
Relatively bug-free. And again, this isn't me saying Starfield deserves a lower score. I think that 88 is perfect. So I think it's a bizarre situation for me, where I do understand rating Starfield a 7, but not in the context of some of these other scores. If Fallout 4 is a 9.5, if that's the scale we're using, Starfield is absolutely not a 7. Although, even with all of that in mind, the most important part about all of this is Bethesda just dropped a gigantic game. Like, numerous reviews are describing Starfield as a several hundred-hour-long experience, and it gets scored 88 out of 100 by over 100 different reviewers. If you're a fan of RPGs, this is as good as it gets. We're just getting good RPG after good RPG, and we don't even have mod tools for Starfield yet. Things are only getting better as time goes on. Although, not all die-hard Bethesda fans agree here, as we have definitely started to see significant pushback with Starfield from the community. Not the game overall. I feel like that's one thing with Starfield that definitely has stood out. Many view the game overall as being pretty good, but it's specific things in the game that a lot of people are getting frustrated or just confused by. And even as just a very clear example of this, if you look at the Starfield subreddit right now,
no one literally hit him there. Just pointing that out. He not a single one of like 30 shots just connected with him. That's insane.
The top 3 posts are all overtly negative or just some kind of criticism on the...
Yeah, Starfield feels like a regression from Bethesda games. On point! They removed the exploration from Bethesda games. That's insanity. Skyrim in town 12 years ago, or Starfield. True, there's no map, which is, again, it's like, well, Bethesda's the game that decided that NPCs don't need to exist, so there you go. Bethesda being held back by the creation engine. True, the engine was already outdated when Skyrim came out. And this is 10 years later. It's absolutely sad.
Game. And of course, there's a ton of other...
And Bethesda has every single resource in the world to actually fix all of those things. But it doesn't.
With similar sentiments that didn't score as highly. Some of the major criticisms being pointed out by the community as they've gotten their hands on the game.
Starfield is like Diablo 4, but the difference is that everyone started complaining about Diablo 4 like 2 weeks after the launch. But with Bethesda, it's like, already here at launch.
Is that Starfield just has constant fast travel. It feels like you're constantly going from one box to another, and it almost doesn't even feel like an open world at points.
Because
the maps and cities are kind of bad, and navigating New Atlantis can be confusing. Space itself is kind of pointless outside of dogfights, with your spaceship.
Dogfights. Pass someone, turn around, shoot again, pass them, turn around, shoot again. There you go. I just described every single encounter you will ever have in space.
Really being a fast travel machine more than anything else. Inventory management is a hassle due to bad UI, and junk is far more confusing overall now. The main quest is pretty divisive, some thinking it really felt like a fetch quest, although there's definitely some others that are really enjoying the main quest. As well as the intro was just not that well written and honestly kind of hilarious. Like, you start off Starfield with some random dude giving you his spaceship and actually taking your job as a miner so you can go on some space adventure without him. And honestly,
yeah, that's a great way to start an adventure.
With me, I agree with all of these.
Plus, he's black and you literally sold him to slavery.
These unvarying degrees. Many of these are actually the exact points I brought up in my own Starfield review, particularly around the main story. I just wasn't a huge fan of Starfield's main story. And I think
yes, please use this gun.
Space and spaceships are really one of the biggest issues for a lot of players right now. Because these are aspects of...
Okay, you see that? This is what you never do in a single game that has shooties, okay? Especially with full auto. He literally emptied half of his damn clip to kill a 50% wounded enemy. You know what that means? You know what that means? If the enemy was on full health, he would have to use a full clip, and maybe he wouldn't still have gotten the enemy. This is the problem with Starfield weapons that no one is talking about. If you ever empty a full clip in a basic enemy, and you need to reload and that he's still standing, man, that feels bad. And no one talks about this. Like, why? It's the most basic thing. People... And you know what's the crazy part? Bethesda fanboys are not talking about the gunplay because it's horrible most of the times, But they are elevating how good the melee play is. And you know why the melee play is? Because it's not balanced and it deals too much damage. Okay? With a gun you need to use 2 clips to kill a basic enemy. With melee you need 3 hits to kill a basic enemy, and that's pretty fast. And it feels pretty good. Like, bro.
Of the game you just can't avoid. Space was a fairly major selling point of Starfield, but in reality there really isn't that much purpose to just flying around in your spaceship. Your spaceship overall doesn't have as much utility as some were hoping for. A lot of Starfield involves just jumping from one place to another, and a lot of the times you don't even see your spaceship if you're fast traveling around it.
A lot of people literally ignore the jump part, by the way. They just try to skip it as much possible, as much as honestly it's possible.
I understand these. I really feel like the thing with Starfield is it has so much other enjoyable content that some of these core issues didn't bother me as much as they would in another game.
Yeah, look at this, look at this. He just emptied the full clip into an enemy. He needs to reload, and that enemy is still there and kicking. You cannot tell me this is not the worst gunplay you have ever seen in your life.
Space, but that's largely okay because I spent tens of hours on various planets doing epic quest lines for a bunch of the different factions in the game. I do genuinely think right now in release, Starfield has a problem with player expectations. Fans were hoping certain things would be better and they aren't. Like, Starfield really is Skyrim in space. So
this is why I laughed about the Bethesda fanboys, because they unironically thought that Bethesda's gonna do something unique. Bro, from the minimal gameplay that we saw, we already knew that this is gonna be like Fallout. Skyrim in space. It's literally a Bethesda game. It innovates on nothing.
Some stuff is better and some stuff is worse, but I think
admittedly the talent points overall, I guess, are kind of like a step up from whatever Bethesda has done in the previous games, because it was, god atrocious there.
Time as fans put more time into the game and even recalibrate their expectations for the game we have, player enjoyment will go up. Starfield is a truly giant game, and I think unfortunately it does take a good 10, 20, or even 30 hours to really recognize how in-depth certain systems go. Like, I know for me, it probably took around 25 hours to really recognize how cool this new skill system is and how in-depth you can go with it. There's some very powerful skills that you'll have to work towards and get to, and there's a lot of that.
What kind of in-depth are you talking about, dude? What? You understand it's just lines that you unlock and then you put the point in. What's in-depth about that? Reading a little bit ahead, like what you're gonna get in the future if you go into them? I don't understand. What's in-depth about that? How do you need 20 hours to figure that out? That the stuff at the bottom is probably stronger than the stuff at the start. This is why Bethesda has fans, bruh.
In Starfield, whether it be the various side quest lines or even some of the other systems that I even haven't explored yet. And in general, people are loving this game, as we could see from the player counts, as we could see from the review scores, and just in general with the fans, although there are negative sentiments about certain aspects. The broader takeaway is a lot of people are really and truly loving Starfield, and that's great.
I mean, it's playable. Do not misconstrue that with people love it. Yeah, like, I expected it was gonna be playable. I expected that it's actually gonna be worth your whatever money you're willing to pay for it. Yeah, 100%. But it's a Bethesda game. It's gonna be probably worth your time if you like Bethesda games. But that's it. There's nothing literally special about Starfield. Currently, it's like literally behind No Man's Sky, and that's kind of it. Like, if you want an actual space experience, you play No Man's Sky, not Starfield.
A couple of days, once the game properly releases, we'll have a better idea on all of this. Right now, the review scores for users is locked because Starfield's technically in early access. With that in mind though, those are my reactions to Starfield's launch. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one, where I share some of the most interesting things or Easter eggs I found while playing Starfield.
Well, it's as always interesting, Juicehead. We're gonna have a lot more of these videos. Oh boy. And this video was when? 1 day ago? Oh yeah, so... yeah, let's refresh the page that I have for the Starfield current peak viewer count. Not viewer count, but peak player count. Yeah, it's 236k. 237, let's just say, k currently. And it doesn't seem like it's gonna even surpass Saturday. And today's Sunday, dude. And it's pretty much peak time, I think, right? Yeah, the hills look all the same. I mean, Starfield fanboys. You be fanboys, I guess. Hey, as long as you're happy, honestly, right? Anyway, this was Mr. Sensei. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.